In this video, we are going to talk about two-dimensional arrays. Up to this point, we've only talked about 1D arrays, which are useful a container to store information. But 2D arrays are nice because they actually model things like game boards and whatnot, so you can store information in a rectangular type format. So let's talk about how to create a 2D array. So I have a template here, and I'm going to create an array of integers. Okay. So when you create an array, normally you put one set of brackets. Now I'm going to put two sets of brackets to denote a two-dimensional array. And I'll call this a grid equals new int of 3 by 4. And the 3 and 4 refer to rows and columns. So if you take a look at this array here, it's 3 rows numbered 0, 1, and 2, and 4 columns numbered 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's always RC, row column. Just think remote control RC. Right now it's empty, so I'm going to put some information into it. Now with an array, we use the for loop, and we're going to do something similar in a 2D array, except we're going to have a for loop inside of a for loop, which is called a nested for loop. Okay, and it looks something like this: for int row. Now in 1D arrays, I've always had to use index, and we still are, except these are a little more specific. They're actually row indices and column indices. So I'll just say row and column. Row less than the grid.length, and row plus plus 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the new thing is I want to put a for loop inside of a for loop in column equals 0, column less than grid 0.length. Now notice I put a 0 here. We're going to come back to that and find out why that is. Column plus plus 1, 2, 3, and inner 4, and I should have put outer 4 here to differentiate between the different for loops. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to, just like I read a book, I'm going to start here and put a number in this spot, put a number in this spot, put a number in this spot, put a number in this spot. When I'm done, come down over here and cycle across and cycle across. That is basically called, in a fancy way, row major order, like reading a book. That's all it really means. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each spot. I'm going to go to grid, row, column, and I'm going to put in row plus column. It's going to be an addition table. I'm going to put in whatever the value of row and column are into that spot. So let's pretend we're the computer. I'm going to say rows equal to 0. Then I go inside the for loop and say columns equal to 0. So 0 plus 0 is 0. I'm going to put a 0 there. Then I'm going to increment column by 1 to go over here. So 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 plus 3 is now 3. So this inner for loop takes me across the grid, across the 4 columns. And when I reach the end, again, that 0 I'll talk about in a second. When I reach the end, now rows 1. So 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 plus 3 is 4. When I'm done, I'm going to go to increment row again. 2 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 1 is 3. Excuse me, this is 2, wrong addition. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 plus 2 is 4. And 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay, so this is an addition table taking into account corresponding rows and columns. Now after I do that, I've put information into the array. Now to print it out, just so we can see what it looks like, I'm going to just basically copy this. And instead of assigning information to a spot, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to print it out using a system.out.print line, like that. So I'll visit each row and column, and I'll print out what's at that spot, which should look something like that. Let's compile it, and let's run it, and lo and behold, I get that. Okay, so the numbers look right. 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. But it doesn't look like a 2D array to me. So let's fix that. So it looks like after I finished printing one entire row, I want to go to the next line. So let's see. After I've gone through an entire row here, or visited each column, I should say. Right after that, let's do this. Let's do system.out.println. Let's go \n. Let's put a new line. Okay. Let's see if that does it. Seems like after I visit all of the items in a certain column, I print a new line which goes over here. Let's see if that works. Compile. Okay, let's run it. And it's a little bit closer, except it looks like we are. This should be a cross. It looks like for some reason when I print 0, I go to the next line and print 1 and 2 and 3. So why is that happening? Why am I want it to go across. So let's take a look at the code again. And notice when I print out a specific number, I'm doing a print line. Let's take the ln out. That ln, let's just go print, which means don't print an extra line. Let's just print. Let's save that, compile it, looks good, and run it. And that looks better. Okay, so it kind of looks like 0, 1, 2, and so forth. And we can add some spaces in there. Why don't we do that? Add some spaces in there to see if it space it a little better. We'll go plus a space. Okay, save it, compile it. And there you go. There's my 2D array. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's an addition table. Okay. Now let's go back and talk about this detail here. This sounds reasonable. Grid.length. Okay, this is the length of the rows. There's 3 rows. All right. Now why is this here? Okay. Well, that takes us to this picture over here. This is what we visualize a 2D grid as being, or a game board. In memory, it actually looks like this. It's an array, an array of 3, a length 3, like a 1D array. But at each element of the array, I have an array itself. So this is the 0th row. That's this row right here. But it's actually an array of arrays. And that array inside has 4 elements for the column. So when I do this grid.0, what am I doing? I'm saying, hey, go to the computer, go to the 0th row. Okay, great, right here. Find the length of what's inside the 0th row. Well, what's inside the 0th row is a 4-element array. The length is 4. That makes sure when I use this for loop here, I only go across 4 elements. So it's less than 4. So even though we see it as this, or we should visualize it as this, internally the computer is saying it's an array of arrays. So that's why the 0 is here. I'm saying visit the 0th row. Tell me how long the thing inside of it is. So since this is pretty symmetrical, I could have put grid 1 or grid 2 because they're all basically the same length. Typically, we just go to the 0th row and go how long is the thing inside it because they're all the same there. So that explains that 0 there. That explains why this doesn't have a 0. It's just saying the length of the array, which is actually here. So in a nutshell, we have a 1D array of arrays, which if you draw it, it looks like this. Okay, we won't really refer to this diagram. We refer to this diagram in class and in exams, but internally that's why that 0 is there. So to create a 2D array, first step, we put 2 sets of brackets, and remember it's always row and column, RC. All right. We have a nested for loop, so it's a for loop in a for loop, and notice how I use row and column here instead of index, because these are actually both indices, but to differentiate I say row and column. We talked about the 0 issue here. And then I can visit each cell and put in a row and a column. And then I can visit each cell here and print out what's there. Okay, and within the main there. So that's an example of how you create, populate, and print out things in a 2D array.